Highlight wouldn't know that song.
Nope.
It's before his time, huh?
This is Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty.
Greetings and salutations, greetings and salutations. I am CaptainSeriousFun, and this is episode 203 of Soul Citizens. There's nothing better than being right here, right now, with all of you. I'm super excited to not only have all of you, but to have two of the best looking gentlemen in the verse here with me tonight to talk about trade secrets. Fastcart FC and Kalrati. Gentlemen, how are you? Fastcart, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm tired. It takes work to get to look this good. That's what I'm gonna say. I know, Griff. I know, Griff. I know.
Oh, Griff's on here with us too.
Yeah, I was about to say 3. He's like,
GriffinGaming RPG, how are you doing?
I'm ugly. That's how I'm doing.
Three of the best looking. It just got even better. It just got even
just
better.
saying that you're a premium game.
It's too late. Too late.
I can't fix it. I'm turning red.
No, I'm doing good.
Red.
Doing good.
And Kalrati, how are you, man?
I am so happy to be here. Happy to be in between all of you, beautiful gentlemen, and I am happy and excited to talk about what we have today with the crew. That is Twitch chat and everyone. Yeah, happy to be here. How are you?
Yeah,
doing?
speaking of that, I want to let everybody know here at the beginning, and we'll say it a couple more times across the first third of the show, to go ahead and look at your channel points for the channel tonight. Then just take one of them. If you want to ask a viewer question, right? We're going to have a Q&A section at the end of the night, and we want to make sure that we get all of your questions around our talking points and our subject tonight. And what is that? Trade secrets. Well, we're going to be talking about trade, and trade as we define it broadly, and as we can define it in Soul Citizens, is really the following. Is there a slide for this, Griff, or should I just say?
Sure. No, you can jump on it. I'll get to you.
Okay. So trade involves the transfer of goods and or services from one person or entity to another, often in exchange for money. Economists refer to a system or a network that allows trade as a market, right? And traders generally negotiate through a medium of credit or exchange, such as money. In the verse, of course, that's now AUEC and will be UEC, right? Which is a one medium of credit or exchange. But trade doesn't have to be limited to that. And we may get into some of that later on. As players think innovatively, there's other trades you can make in the verse for goods and for services. So just on that idea alone, I want to ask the panel, when you hear trade, what do you begin to think about? Griff, let's start with you. Since I dissed you, I want to start with you. I'm going to lean into you heavy tonight and make sure you know that you are valued and loved.
I appreciate that. It's all right. No. Yeah, that's a good question. I think the fact that you put it in context of Star Citizen, it gives me a different angle to talk about. And what I look at is opportunity, I think, is the thing I look at. To your point, there's the possibility of many ways to do trade in this game. Traditionally, there have been other games that I've played, such as Eve and some other games where there's a trade economic aspect to a game. But, ICCIG, especially when you go into some place, and now we're going to talk about it later, like the TDD, and I go up in there and I see that big wall of all of the information that's up there and stuff. I get excited about the possibilities of what that means for us as players. How will information be transferred? How do we know where the latest thing is to go do? How can we do prospective things with markets? If I'm a miner, how do I start knowing how to build my wealth, or if somebody wants to be the entrepreneur and wants to, lock down a certain area. I just see so many different possibilities of what trade could be. And like you said, it doesn't have to be necessarily about making credits as much as it could be about being accredited, right? Like somebody knows that you're the best at doing something, maybe you're best at farming, right? Or you're producing and manufacturing something. Trade can kind of go into so many different areas for me.
Absolutely. And fastcart, your thoughts when you hear trade, what do you think about?
Well, first of all, I seriously thought that CaptainSeriousFun was excluding me when you're talking about the beautiful fly. I thought I was the ugly one, but yeah, it's good to know that I wasn't. Thanks for including me on that. But when I think of trade, I think about buying low and selling high. I played EVE Online, so that was I did some trading in Final Fantasy 11 online back in the day, but when I was in EM Online, that really took my entrepreneurship to another level, because I was well, for me, it's all about getting the materials that you need to make what you want to make, and then making that, and then trying to find a good place to sell, or wheeling and dealing, the whole 9 yards. That's what trade is for me.
Yes. Yeah, I feel that as well. For me, it wasn't Eve, it was Elite Dangerous, right? But it's that same principle. Where can I go to buy low or buy no, right? Get it for free. Maybe it's for some work, and then go high. Kalrati, your thoughts when you hear trade, what do you think about, especially in Star Citizen?
Yeah, especially in Star Citizen. I think trade is one of those, when I think about it, I think of it as being one of those passive ways, I guess you could call it passive ways to, I guess, promote. Oh, you get stumbled. Thank you for the follow.
Thank you for the follow.
Kaiser Sose, thank you for the follow.
Thank you. So yeah, so I was thinking, it's one of those passive ways that you can use to promote social preservation. When you think of different aspects of the game, and when I mean social preservation, I mean between players. When you think about different aspects of the game, combat, and of course you have the other professions as well, mining, salvaging, and all those things. We have these sometimes isolated pockets that in some cases promote social interaction. But what I think of trade as being in Star Citizen is not only with the game itself, but if you're willing, fastcart and Griff, and you also touched on, when it comes to crafting, when it comes to getting things done as a community, as an organization, that's where trade comes in. Because if I do X and someone else does Y, and we need, that kind of a resource from either persons, and that's where trade comes in. So that's where I see the value of it outside of us trading with the game itself, as a way to promote that kind of social exchange in the game.
Absolutely. And Liquid Wayno, thank you very much for the continued subscription. 5 months in a row. You're an absolute blessing. We really appreciate it.
Yes, welcome back.
Whammer's in the house. Yeah, for me, the way that I think about it, is what has spurred new ways of thinking about it has been when Todd Pappy introduced base building and the potential for crafting in the game. And towards that earlier point I was making, what are we going to be able to craft that has value that we might be able to trade for other items in the game, right? In terms of a barter system, and not just for UEC or AUEC. And how can artisans deliver unique crafts that, because of their uniqueness, might have much more value or infinite value because they, maybe only one was ever made and things like that. So I think about all that stuff. Good stuff. Well, the way we're looking at trade tonight and trade secrets is a few different ways. One is we're going to talk about all the different areas in Star Citizen where trade can happen. Right. And as we talk about those areas, as we have tips that players can use, and this will be as of 3.22, right? So let's be clear that things might change, but as of 3.22, as we have tips, we will share those. And please share tips you have in the chat for things that you're aware of that we might have missed, etc. So the first area is mining and refining. And I'm going to go ahead and read this first one so that, when I call on everybody else to read, they know that they don't have to do anything I won't do. But, Star Citizen, or CIG, talks about this in terms of their page on what they call mining basics, right? And they say, what is mining in Star Citizen? Mining in Star Citizen as a career offers opportunities to explore exotic locations and generate substantial income. And we know players have been doing that. As a craft, it offers exciting gameplay and an opportunity to develop a skill set that will continue to reward you as you improve your skills and instincts as a miner. And they break it down into 3 phases: mining, scanning, fracturing, and extraction. And scanning is the process of identifying which rocks around you are mineable, whether you're out in the asteroid belt or on the ground, as well as which ones are worth mining. Fracturing is the phase in which a miner's skill really comes into play. The goal of fracturing is to use the mining laser to break large rocks into smaller pieces so that the valuable elements can be extracted and stored for transport. During the fracturing process, the miner's goal is to adjust the laser throttle just right, to raise the rock's energy level enough to break the rock without overcharging it, and of course, causing it to explode. And then extraction is the process of gathering the precious elements from the rubble left behind after successfully fracturing the targeted rock and loading those elements onto your ship. So those 3 is what mining is. Refining is a whole other process that we'll come to, but I want to get folks' thoughts on their experience mining, what they do, how they do it, what is it like, and what are their thoughts. So let's start with Kalrati. Kalrati, mining. Do you do it? When you do it, how do you do it? And what ship do you do it? What's your experience with mining? Do you like it?
Yeah, I love it. When mining first came online, the service was so bad. I'm sure many of you guys remember the hitching, the delays that used to happen, especially when you wanted to mine at a really good rock, But these days, I really enjoy it. I usually go with the impact mining head, or either that or the helix. And I tend to usually more so frequent around Microtech, right? So I tend to mine around Clio and Euterpe there. And I have a really good time. What I tend to do, though, I don't necessarily look for or spend too much time looking for minerals. I tend to have like a bit of a quota in terms of time. So if I spend, if I don't find anything, after the first 15 minutes, I just take anything that I can find. The reason why I do that is because I kind of gauge myself in terms of the time taken to find, or the non-value added time taken to find a certain thing that is valuable versus the actual value added activity in terms of, earning that after I send it into the refinery and send it for trading, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my little strategy. And sometimes it works, and other times, I don't really find anything that's worthwhile, but it's still something. So I do that in order to save on time, to maximize, my efficiency as much as I can. And yeah, I have a pretty good time. I usually tend to mine on the surface, and I like a little bit of danger, so I tend to mine around outposts intentionally because I like the chase in case anybody.
You want some action.
Exactly. So I don't mind, in more remote areas, even though we all know how to do that, but I tend to just go to a popular area if it's either via McGrath, et cetera, and I just mine close to there and see if anybody spots me, and yeah. Because I know the feeling when it comes to the piracy and those things, so I like to receive it, So
yeah, absolutely. And Thrakazog, thank you very much for the gifted sub to the community.
Hey,
thank you very much. Yeah, Whammer, tell them, let them know. Fastcart, do you mine? Do you have plans to mine? How do you think about mining? What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, I just want to say I have the mind of a miner. I'm young at heart. Oh, you mean the other type of mining? Okay, got it. I don't mine currently. I don't mind currently. I plan to getting some mining in, because in EVE Online, I mined a lot. I could mine for like 6 to 8 hours a day to get my material to make my ships and stuff like that. I could foresee myself doing something similar in Star Citizen. Like I said, I'm trying not to burn myself out too much before the game actually launches. Dental Hobo brought up a point, like with the white coming up. I don't want to spend a whole lot of effort to make money and not have it accumulate. Put it that way. So I'm waiting for real persistence to kick in. But yes, I do plan on doing some mining. I probably buy a prospector in game. I have a prospector LTI in my bag, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah.
Okay. And Griff, your thoughts on mining?
Yeah.
And how it fits into your sense of this experience.
Yeah, I'm one of those folks. We talked about this before. I was an Eve player. Mining was a big thing that I enjoyed doing there. Mining, salvage, things along those lines. So for me, mining will probably be one of the larger areas that I'll be looking forward to doing in the game. As you guys know, mining has been probably the most fleshed out career that we have in Star Citizen right now, even though it's not complete and though it still has some issues. In general, it's probably the most in-depth of that we have. I want to say that we're probably like on tier 6, maybe tier 6 of what mining has become over the years. So I'm very excited about mining. There are some techniques and ideas that I think that if you've played games like Eve, that you will be able to apply in the Star Citizen universe for trade. But we'll have to see. You know, a lot of this is pending upon what they come up with for the economy, trade routes, things of that nature, the lore. There's a lot of things that are going to be involved in it, but I'm really excited about the aspect of mining, especially because of the versatility that they're giving us, from everything from something as simple as a hand tool all the way up to something like the Orion. So I'm really excited about mining.
Yeah, absolutely. I have experienced mining, whether it's the prospector or the Argo Mole. I have tried to do the Argo Mole solo. I don't like it. I don't like that experience. I look for, well, it's a lot of running back and forth. It's a lot of seat switching, right? It feels messy. Some people love it though. Some people will take that out there and because of the capacities and what the mole can do, they will solo a mole. I tried it. I didn't like it. I do look forward to small squad gameplay with things like the mole, right? I look forward to what CIG's vision is for things like the Orion and what big scale mining might look like, right? And being a part of a crew that does that. Tips on this for me include there are websites like redmonstergaming.com. I will put that into the chat for folks that want to get some support. And we'll talk a little bit more about third-party tools later, but want to get some support on things like ore percentage by location on the surface, or ore percentage by location in space, right? And there are other considerations to have, not only when mining, but when refining, right? Not just to min-max though, right? Because one of the things that I think is important about an activity like mining, right, that's very, very meditative and relaxing for me, is that it's not just about profit per hour, right? It's not just about profit per hour, although that's a consideration. But it might be more important to mine the rocks that are in front of you and to know how to refine and maximize whatever you find, versus trying to chase after the golden goose of the very maximum opportunity, right? I get more of a enjoyable experience going for what's in front of me, and as long as it's not a whole bunch of inert. You know what I mean? And then refining that and letting it sit in the refineries and taking a little bit more time and enjoying the process. So, different strokes for different folks. Kudos to CIG in particular, though, for continuing to deepen this mechanic. To Kalrati's point earlier, mining came in and it was very tier 0, right? And the servers didn't help. You lag, and then all of a sudden you in the rock when you're trying to be back a certain distance from the rock and all this other stuff. But now we've got multiple laser heads, and we've got lots of different techniques and lots of different ways to do it. And when we've got those attachables, so there's a lot of depth to mining gameplay. And for folks who have not tried it out, I highly recommend at least trying it out with somebody who knows what they're doing, and connecting. And you can do that with the Soul team and with others connect with somebody and let them show you what mining is all about. I think you might find that you enjoy it. So good stuff.
Yeah,
time, but I'm curious about how many of y'all have an Orion or want to work on the Orion?
Are you asking us or the chat?
You.
Yeah. Oh, we've got.
Oh my goodness.
We got a raid.
Yo Meg with
Meg.
the raid.
Mm-hmm.
Double dogs. Woof woof.
Thank you, Meg.
The party of 63.
Thank you so much, Meg.
Thank you, Raiders from Yo Meg's channel. If you already over there supporting Yo Meg, you already doing everything that you need to do that is right, moral, and just in this world. We're just thankful to have you here. This is like dessert on that. On top of that, we hope that you will enjoy being over here the same way Yo Meg enjoys being part of the Soul team here. Welcome to Soul Citizens. This is episode 203, Trade Secrets. And I'm here with Kalrati and with fastcart and with GriffinGaming RPG. And we're talking about all the stuff related to trade. So we're super happy to have you here. Good stuff.
Yeah, I think.
And thank you, the Daddy Stockus, Insta Shinobi, Shugo, the Lucky One, Delfrax, and Big Bucky Boy, Big Buckeye Boy.
I got pesos. Gave out those 5 community subs. So.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I got pesos.
Yeah.
You got pesos. Keep getting pesos. Nothing wrong with that. Nice work. Thank you very much.
That. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just curious about how many y'all are planning on working on the Orion, how many of y'all have the Orion. Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I've got all of them because mining was my thing. So I've picked up every mining ship there is in the game.
At one point, in one package, I had the Orion, but I don't believe what CIG says about, or what's been said. I don't believe the latest available information about how many people it's going to take to crew the Orion. I believe it's going to be a lot more than that.
Yeah,
right.
Agreed.
And so, like a lot of people, as we begin to see the reality of these capital ships and what it's going to require to not only be up and running on Orion, you're talking about being up and running not only for the mining function, but all the engineering that every ship will have now, et cetera. I don't see it as part of my fleet going forward at all. So
I want to talk about
Kalrati.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
go ahead, Kalrati.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I thought Serious Fun, you were going to say something? Or
no, I was just saying, Kalrati, I was asking you if what your thoughts were on Fastcart's question.
Oh yeah. So I definitely agree with you there, because especially with the experience with engineering and those things, engineering gameplay, it is a question because I mean, totally sure. I think I can't remember which dev would have said it, but you can definitely most likely in the comments of atmospheres or even the most or even intermediate when it comes to something going wrong, you can definitely do it yourself or do it with a small crew. But when poop hits the fan. And something's happening. You got your stuff refining, and then you're getting attacked, and everything is happening all at once. Murphy's just totally awake. I think that's where we'll see how many people it really takes to actually properly manage this and essentially save all of your money, right, and all of your time. Right. So that's so it does beg the question of, in worst case scenarios, how much persons or how much resource, whether it's persons, NPCs, or both, you'd actually need. So that's something that I'm also looking forward to, because at the moment I don't have an Orion. I don't think I'll be buying one anytime soon either. But I'll be happy to crew one. I'll be happy to take Griffs also. But hey, yeah, I'm definitely down to it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I know Griff wanted to say something. I'm just going to jump in, but I think that's a good point in that, right now, there's a certain thing we have in our subconscious that, all right, well, this is alpha. We're not in the game yet. But once we're in the game, mining is energy, right? Is effort, right? And we've got 3 people or 5 people on an Orion, and everybody's just put in all of their effort and their energy over who knows how long to go mining, and you haven't properly done the things that are required to maintain the engineering on the ship or to have the escort security protection on the ship, and then you lose all of that. It's not just going to be the energy and time you put in, right? It's going to be the energy and time that the whole team put in, right? And I think we're going to be a lot more interested in caretaking for that and making sure other members of your crew get value for that in the verse proper, right? We can practice at that, but we know, it's AUEC. This isn't the game yet, right? So, yeah, that's a good point. Griff, you were trying to get in there to say something.
Yeah, no, I want to make sure we're still tying all this into trade, because we've talked about mining and refining and stuff, but I really want us to make sure that we start talking about the trade aspect of this. And when you were talking about refining, as you mentioned earlier, that's the next step in the process, right? What do we do once we've done all this stuff, right? And I'm kind of curious to see what CIG is going to create. You mentioned this earlier. It's not always about the numbers and the dynamic, but what becomes the trading aspect of this? And I think you raised a really good point at the beginning. There may be certain places where the trade becomes, I trade this for that. A lot of times people think about trade as being about getting paid. But like right now, I'll do a trade run, and that trade run may be something like, I take hydrogen because there's a need for hydrogen over here. But when I get here, I need to get this. So this is what I need to take back to where I'm at, right? And I can make profit from that. So it's not always a one-way type of thing. It may be 3 or 4 stops in order for you to complete what we consider a trade route, right? Before you make a profit. Because maybe that first run only gives you a certain percentage. But if you do 2 or 3 other ones, you've tripled the amount of money that you've made. You've tripled your risk also, probably, or maybe quadrupled it. But I think this idea of why it's important, because once we get into these other subjects, which I know you're going to talk about later, we're going to see how the mining and refining has a tremendous foundation for when it comes down to commodities, trading, repair, all the other things that are going to come along with it. So what are the ways that this is going to be affecting us when it comes to trading is something I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Bonds the Unjust, thank you very much for the follow. We super appreciate that, as well as Sicantrace, thank you for the follow as well. Thank you for joining the Soul Citizens community. We are super thankful to have you here. Let's unless anybody else has some last comments in this area, I want to keep us on track and on point. Let's move on to the next piece that's involved in trade. And I saw Yo-Yo Meg and I are right here. We're right here. She tried to post the same thing about these tips and tricks. And don't forget in the chat that you can use your channel points. You can just use one of them to put in a viewer question if you have questions or things that you want to ask at the Q&A section at the end from the Soul team here tonight. Yes, and thank you, Signore Mookie. Mook, I like that. Thank you very much for the 3 gift subscriptions to the community and for supporting us in that way. Super thankful for that. The next area of trade that we want to talk about is salvage and repair. And again, to CIG's credit, people were saying, when is salvage going to get in the game? When is salvage? It is in the game, right? And it's in the game in a robust way. And it's not just salvage, but it's also ship repair and maintenance, right? And we're getting missions towards this end. But fastcart, if you'll take a look at the RSI page on ship repair and maintenance, and maybe read the first few paragraphs there, not the whole thing, but give us a little taste of how RSI is seeing this thing, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so space the hostile place, and even the most skilled pilots will need to have their craft hacked from time to time. Fortunately, there are a number of options available to citizens to get themselves up and running. Our citizen repair system work in conjunction with the engine detailed damage model to create intuitive and engaging gameplay for players wishing to pursue a career in ship repair, or for pilots to execute quick field repair. The basis for repair technology in Star Citizen are tools equipped with multi-purpose lasers that can trim away damaged materials, or a center construction material injected onto a component frame, rebuilding its structure.
Right. Very good. So one of the things that struck me early on when this came in, I remember Abu Kusanagi was flying around and we were doing bunker missions, and he would come in as a support aircraft and land. And I remember we were getting out and I was like, how come Admiral isn't at the bunker yet? And I went back and he was using the tool to repair his ship. He was literally underneath it like a mechanic, repairing the ship. But that repair material costs money, right? What do y'all think about, Griff? Let's start with you. What do you think about this experience of salvage and repair in the game. Is CIG hitting their stride with this? How are you experiencing it?
Well, part of it is one of the reasons why we have the picture that we have on the screen is the Crucible, right? And you were talking about this being able to do repair. Right now, we're all comfortable with going to a station, going to a landing zone, going to a base, landing, getting repaired. But that luxury may not always be available to folk. And there will be a dynamic of people who are running ships like the Crucible will need raw materials in order for them to do their repair work. Maybe that Crucible owner does not have a salvaging ship to go out and do salvaging, but they want to do repairs. Or orgs, for example, will need this. So another aspect of trade here could be material for material, right? Material for services, right? If I bring you this much material, maybe I don't have the money to pay you, but I may have enough material that I can supply you with some things, especially later on when the game gets into things like crafting and manufacturing, right? Sometimes there are just things that a person may need that could be traded for services, right? Services rendered beyond just payment. Now, there may be some people say, nope, I need some cold hard credits. That's all. That's all I'm looking for, right? But the flexibility of saying, hey, I've got this I can trade for you. Maybe the trade will be a commodity, right? Maybe it's the fact that I've struck gold, literally, right? And that's what I'm going to pay you with, right? Because maybe UEC, not to be funny, but UEC may not be taken everywhere. We don't even know whether or not UEC is taken everywhere. You may go to a place where there's an unlawful system, right? A place like Pyro. Does Pyro take UEC?
Why would they?
Why would they, right? So this trade dynamic could be other things that are considered valuable, commodities or rare metals or whatever, that become much more important later on. So even paying off someone for salvage and repair, that little rinky-dink shop like you were mentioning about Admiral, maybe there's some rinky-dink person who's repairing ships down someplace. What am I going to pay him with? Well, UEC ain't it. I got to have something else to trade with them, right, in order to get that work done.
There's another page that I want to read. I want to, Griff, if you'll read this page, the page that's essentially on salvage and repair, and it talks about how Alpha 318 introduced this career path. If you could read that down through the multi-tool attachment, that'd be great.
Sure. Star Citizen Alpha 318 introduced an all-new career path, salvage and repair. As part of this, all ships have been updated to support soft death. This means that a player's ships won't always be fully destroyed upon death, leaving a hull salvageable. The gathered material can then be sold for profit or used to repair damaged vehicles. Below is a quick start guide. I'll skip past that part. The multi-tool attachment. Looking to start your salvage career? Head to Dumpers Depot or Platinum Bay and pick up a multi-tool and a Cambio Light SRT attachment for the Grey Cat multi-tool. This attachment can both fill recycled material composite RMC canisters by scraping hulls and dispense RMC to help you repair hull damage on your ships.
Yep. And that page goes on to talk about the two ships that we have that are focused on salvage in the game, the Drake Vulture and the Aegis Reclaimer, hull scraping, and all of that loop of salvage activity. Kalrati, what's been your experience with salvage? What's been your experience with repair? Have you enjoyed these activities? Do you see any depth in them? Where can they improve? And what are your tips, if any?
Yeah, sure. So my first tip in terms of my experience has roughly been frequenting between ArcL 3, Michael 4, and CrewL 5. That's just on the tippy top on the left-hand side of Microtech, because I don't necessarily do RMC. But I do, salvage. For some reason, I've been salvaging for like 3 weeks, and I can't remember the time right now. CMs. And what I tend to do is I salvage and I sell those at ArcL 3, because even though you get less Alpha UEC compared to RMC, it's still faster. So I use my Vulture, and I go between these 3 Lagrange points. I do my stuff using the salvage missions, and I sell there. I kid you not. As of 3.23, of course, they've made some balance changes, but as of 3.22.1, it's been extremely profitable because I've been racking up approximately 500,000 Alpha UEC within 3 hours, which I think has been pretty impressive compared to the other professions. A little too impressive, hence the rebalance and changes in 323. But
so when you say you do that at the Lagrange points, you're doing the trade at the space stations that are there.
Yep, the space station. So specifically Arkel 3, because currently Crew L5 has a bit of a bug sometimes when it comes to using the elevators to access the Galleria, and Michael 4 there is no demand for what you salvage there. So I tend to only sell at Arkel 3, at the station itself, at the admin center there. So I only go up to, as a vulture, I only go up to about a Corsair. I mean, you still waste some because you only have about 13 SCU. So you still get excess, and you can't really you can't split it enough to get the excess back. But that's usually my go-to when it comes to salvaging, because it's fast, it's close by, and there isn't a lot of people doing missions there, and I don't know why. But in terms of my perspective, in terms of what I see in terms of the trade aspect for salvage and repair, I see so much value in terms of the spontaneity and its potential as being a preservation, a social interaction preserver. When I say that, I'll be really quick when it comes to this. We hear about crafting, like Griff had mentioned. We hear about base building that CIG has talked about. The spontaneity, or the value of salvage and repair as a spontaneity based feature, is that I remember playing Ark and building my bases, building my walls, etc., and realizing, wow, I spent so much time in the outskirts gathering all my stuff to build my base, and I'm just missing a small aspect. And I can just message somebody, maybe just shoot a message in global chat, say, okay, I need this kind of crafting material or this kind of resource. Do you have it? To either get the kind of resource that I need, hence the whole trading aspect, or if I need to repair some aspect of my ship, do you have X material or Y material nearby, and are you in the area? So the whole value in the spontaneity that salvage and repair can bring, that's what I'm really looking forward to for Star Citizen, the value that it can bring in that aspect. Because currently I don't repair as much as I would like to, because it's easier still to go to the space station and repair my ship. All right. But as we're seeing in 3.23, we're seeing the balance changes for the cost of ships, the balance changes for items. I'm sure a lot of us expect that to also be the case for station-based repair in terms of the costs and those things. So, that whole aspect of value to having someone being able to exchange their services, as Griff had mentioned, to repair my ship, so that I don't have to spend, a lot of money, or a lot of time to go back to a space station, especially in large systems like Pyro. And that is where that whole social interaction can come in when it comes to salvage and repair. So that's what I'm really looking forward to also in Star Citizen when it comes to this feature.
Yeah, what you said here reminds me of, in real life, you do trading, or you do selling, you do some sort of exchange on Facebook Marketplace, or you do it on eBay. And all of us who have done that have had the experience where sometimes we'll sell something and you let somebody come to your house, and sometimes you go meet them at a neutral location because it don't feel right? It feels a little shady, right? And I can imagine the same thing in Star Citizen, right? I can imagine there'll be times where if I'm talking to Griff, I'll have him come to the base, or I'll go to his base, right? But with others, you go, oh, I need this thing. Hey, can I meet you at this neutral location?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're managing that risk, right? You're managing that risk.
Cap, let me ask you a question. Do you think that maybe, I don't know, CIG said they seem like they were vacillating about the purpose of cargo decks after they've had them in here for many years? I mean, wouldn't that be like a great neutral place to you? Like if I wanted to sell you something, you just meet me at this station. We do the transaction there with the terminals. You know what I mean? We ain't got to be worried about nobody hijacking us or nothing, nothing like that.
I absolutely think that's right. And I also, I'm not sure how I feel about the admin office being on the Galleria level.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I feel like a lot of this stuff should be on the
It should be in the cargo
level.
deck. It should be. Absolutely.
Right.
Mhm.
And the Galleria is for shopping and food.
Right.
And so hopefully they'll consider all of that. But yeah, I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah, the admin office needs to be the leasing office or something for the building. It doesn't need to have anything to do with what we're talking about.
Well,
I think the cargo deck is the perfect place for that.
and that'll work for both lawful and unlawful people, because unlawful people can choose a cargo deck that they have access to, and so on. But lawful players will have that added security of knowing that the deal should be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But
So-
I was going to say that.
Yes, go ahead. Fast cart.
I was going to say that Kalrati took part of my idea. I'm interested in what else the salvage materials will be used for. Like, people know. Thank you for the bit. Thank you for the fabric. Thank you for the bit.
Fabric.
Thank you, Everett.
People know that I have an endeavor. So when it comes to trading, I'm interested in using the super collider, and I'm wondering what kind of materials that we require. If you talk about salvage and repair, it may not surprise me that that it may require some salvage material depending on what I want to do. In addition to a lot of power to running the super collider. But yeah, and what other materials we may need may not be even in the game yet. But to Griffin's point about affording materials when you're low on cash, I'm going to ask for a layaway plan if I can't afford some materials at any given moment, because I'll be like that.
That's right. Let me get on a payment plan real quick, right?
Well, can I ask you a question, Fast Cart? I mean, you are talking about the endeavor. Are you going to go out and get the materials for it, or are you going to get the materials from other players? Are you going to buy those materials? Because some people may not want to go out and get raw resources. Some people say, I'll do it all. I'll get the resources, I'll process them, I'll use them. And other people may not have any interest in, they may not even own a mining ship. How do you plan on getting resources in order to do stuff?
I plan on getting resources the cheapest way possible or the easiest way possible, depending on what my needs are at any given specific time. Like, if it's easier for me to get it from a player or cheaper to get it from a player, I'll do that. If it's easier for me to get it from an NPC or the station and whatnot, I'll do that. Or if there's an auction house that we don't have access to, I'll work the auction house to the best of my affordability and profit.
Okay, so you're one of the people who aren't going to do it all. You'll just find a source to pull your material from. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just asking. Okay, cool.
And we can't forget also that we are experiencing these loops, these trading environments, mining for trade, refining for trade, salvage and repair as they relate to trade in a corporate system, right? I'm also interested in, they've put the Terra jump point in the game, so I imagine Terra's coming at some point. But Terra appears to be a high security, high tax system, right? So,
Yeah.
What will it mean to make the selling decisions there? Will the government always get their cut, right? Versus, to your point, Griff, in a lawless system like Pyro, the currency may not even be UEC, but if it is UEC, there may be no tax, or there may be a gang tax, right? So very interesting.
But to your point, it's like if I plan on working on tour, it depends on how big the tax is. But hopefully, I'll be safe from people like Kalrati or some other people who want to target my BMM, so that it'll be safer than working in someplace unlawful like Pyro. But to Griffin's point, like I may plan to do some acquiring of materials on my own, but I don't see myself getting the levels or volume of trade that I will require. But I'll be trying to work the auction house or talking to people.
Yeah. Very good. So, trade secrets. Let's talk about the next area that is fundamental to trading in the verse, and your thoughts on it. And it's cargo. Kalrati, will you take a look and read the cargo section, the first few paragraphs there?
Yeah, sure, you got it. Let me pull it up real quick.
Yep.
Have it up in view. And then need me to say it. You got it, Kalrati?
Yeah, I got it. I think so.
In the meantime, we get to look at your Staying Alive video in the background behind you. So
All right, so cargo. So in Star Citizen, cargo consists of bulk goods transported at a freight rate for commercial gain. Players in Quanta transport said cargo from their points of production to where they are needed, making the core of Star Citizen's economic background. Now, ships and cargo. Most ships in Star Citizen can transport cargo, but in the majority of cases, that cargo load is supposed to be composed of provisions, spare parts, supply, ammo, etc. A few of them are designed with cargo hauling in mind, be it as their partial or only intended purpose.
very good.
Now,
very good.
okay.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Got it.
And we know that we wanted to make sure that we talked about the ships that are really built for this work. And as you look at some of the ships that have different capacities, there are some real surprises across the verse as to cargo capacity. But your thoughts, Fastcart, let's start with you. Your thoughts on cargo and its role in trade and how you see it in the game.
Yes. One of my words is like if you're working on a supply route, even though space is big, will those routes be frequented by pirates or who have you, or near do well, as someone might say, how much danger. So you got not only have to worry about getting there, you're gonna have to have logistics of like having escorts and stuff like that when using the cargo ship, like the hull and the freelancer or whatever ship you may use. So even though it won't just be about the cargo ship, it'll be about the ship you have along with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Griff, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of touching on this because cargo's evidently cargo's a big thing. I think CIG even made a point of letting us know that that was one of the reasons why it wasn't included in 323, because it has such an impact across the board with a lot of things that we do in the game. For me, I'm one of those people who, though I mentioned about mining and salvaging, the next area for me that's just as equal for that is how do I get that stuff where it needs to go, which means I've got to go to cargo and commodities. I know a little bit later we're going to be talking about some of the ships that definitely are that kind of define this. I think we opened this show, we started out with the Hull C, and though you can move anything in any ship in the game, there are some ships that are kind of dedicated toward this type of work. So I think for the cargo side of it, I'm curious to see, when it comes to trade, again, if I'm trading someplace out that's not where UEC means something, what will somebody want from me? What will they want me to pay them to help me do some level of work? And I'm really curious to see where that's going to go, because I think this thing with UEC is kind of overblown to a certain degree. I think it's important within, UEE impacted areas, but there are going to be people who need something more than credits, right? And whatever those things are, will I be able to provide those things? And when it comes to the commodities, I know we're going to be talking about the TDD in a little bit, so I won't bend into that too much. But right now, we do have in our Mobi-Glass where we get the commodities that pop up for trade and tell us that this is what's selling for this or what's needed here. I'm waiting to see that blow up even more, because you said this earlier, Cap, about mining. A lot of people will go for just that Quantanium, right? That's what they're looking for, or the Bexolite. But like myself, when I go out mining, I mine freaking everything, man. Especially like with an Orion, I'm just going to chew everything up I can so that I have all those commodities available to myself, so that when I'm ready to trade, when the market tells me the prices are here over here, I'm ready to go. I don't want to have to go out and start looking for it. I want to make sure it's sitting someplace ready to go whenever this stuff starts to move. So for me, these two things go hand in hand. The commodities obviously become cargo. That's how we transport them. That's how we make our profit or whatever it is we do.
Let me cut in real quick, because I think Tavion asked a great question. Is cargo ship and transport ship the same thing? To your question, cargo is more bulk. Transport is more consolidated. I guess the word may be like cargo would be a whole sea. Transport may be a freelancer or a merchantman.
Well, I sort of see it a little differently. I see transport as humans, right? So I see the Genesis Starliner as a transport ship,
living only,
right? Or the Spirit E1 as a transport ship, and I see cargo as stuff. So you have a Boeing. I know everybody's thinking twice when they fly Boeing right now, but you have a Boeing. You have some of them that are dedicated to passengers, and you have some of them that are like FedEx, right? And they're dedicated to cargo, right? To stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I got lots of questions for y'all when we start talking about ships. But one of the things, Kalrati, that struck me as you were reading, and I got triggered. I got triggered a little bit, was when it said players and quanta.
Yeah.
And we're all waiting for what that's going to be like. But how do you imagine, to Griff's point, quanta shaping the uniqueness of different systems, right? So if you've got quanta that, for example, in a system have mined a certain thing or gotten a certain thing, and they have a deficit of something else, well, that raises the value of that thing, even though Quantanium might be the meta right now, right? So how do you see quanta impacting this whole thing?
Right. So I remember in Microsoft Freelance, and I'm sure you can remember it too, whenever we landed at a station or a planet, we would see buy, sell, this sells this item or this buys this item. And I know that one of the visions that Tony Z in Freelancer had was to make that thing dynamic. How I see it when it comes to the dynamism that quantum has on the economy in Star Citizen is, well, I'm looking forward to many different aspects when it comes to potential piracy, that flow of action or interaction between pirates and traders or cargo haulers, in terms of also essentially being able to know or not know, or have any kind of uncertainty on whether or not this is going to, or X or Y or Z is going to make some kind of profit. When you're on your way, going across multiple systems, and some kind of dynamic event just happens, and it just shifts the entire route completely. What is that going to do for the player? And would we have any tools to be able to know, okay, this destination has been compromised in terms of my cargo route, in terms of everybody's economic routes? What is our next action? So this is what I see quanta and the whole quantum system affecting the economy. That's how I see it. In terms of what our decisions are going to be when it comes to trade secrets or trade decisions on the spot. Because I think apart from making preemptive decisions, being able to improvise in case anything happens dynamically, that's going to make the difference between a successful trader or cargo hauler and someone who's still learning the ropes.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Other thoughts on cargo? I wanted to elevate Griff ships in this section before we talk about the TDD, if that's okay.
Sure. If it's okay, can we do our commercial break, because we're right at the top of the hour, and we'll come back in 1 minute.
Okay.
Is that cool?
All right. Yes, let's do it.
All right.
We'll be back right after this.
After these messages.
All right. There's the countdown. We're at the 1 minute mark. Subscribers, thank you guys. As always, we appreciate you guys for being here. We really, really do. We just recently we just recorded a new video that we're going to be talking about the people versus Chris Roberts. And we're going to put that out in about a week. So we want you guys to be looking forward to seeing that. If you are a Patreon subscriber, you also will have early access to that as well as a YouTube subscriber. So we really appreciate those of you who are there, but it will go out to the public. So just be looking for that. I think you guys will find it very interesting. It's a new series called The Producers. And so it'll be Captain Serious Fun, Fastcart, and myself together. So thank you guys for being here. And the commercial will be over in 10 seconds, and we're going to jump back into it.
And I wanted to say happy Revenge of the Sith. Is that what you people say?
Yes, happy, yes, right.
When you say you
happy
people.
Cinco de Mayo.
And Cinco de Mayo. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yes, all of those things. Absolutely. Well, welcome back. Welcome back. And we are talking here on episode 203, Trade Secrets. And we just finished talking about cargo, but I wanted to extend that in this conversation around ships. And we have some ships that we want to talk about, but I wanted to just share with you a couple of thoughts and get your guys' reaction to this. There are some real surprises in the verse in terms of capacity, at least surprises to me, right? So when I look at the 890 jump and we think about the commercial for the 890 jump, for example, that commercial was really a take on The Great Gatsby, right? It was about luxury. It was about enjoyment. It was about relaxation. But that ship holds 388 SCU, right? So you could move product in that ship if you wanted to, right? You could have luxury on the top, and working on the bottom, right? And then to the opposite of that for B is the 600i, right? Which is the next level down in luxury for Origin. But no SCU capacity really. And we know it's getting a rework, but right now, right, 20 SCU for the Touring, 44 SCU for the Explorer. Whereas you're getting real value in something like a Constellation Taurus, 172 SCU, right? So, you know, Griff has up here some ships that we can talk about, the Freelancer series, all the way down to the Privateer. But on this list or off it, Kalrati, are there any surprises or real value for price that you see in ships? Are there some in your experience that are much better for you than others?
Yeah, I'm gonna just straight out go for the smaller ships, the Freelancer, the Hull A, Hull B, especially because we're seeing, some of the requirements in terms of the value added time and non-value added time that it would take to transfer certain things outside of automated transferring for cargo. When it comes, for example, to some of these dynamic events, we know that Blockade Runner is kind of sort of coming to replace Ninetales Lockdown. Imagine, just put yourself in the shoes of, I don't know, I mean, not to talk smack to the C2 owners. I have a C2 in game, but just imagine that you flew a C2 and you landed at Deacons or Hicks, and you had to wait for automatic loading of like 1 SCU and 2 SCU of cargo for Ninetales Lockdown. I think it usually lasted for about 2 hours, right? And I'm just rolling in with my purple shades in my Freelancer, and I just auto load a certain segment of cargo. Yeah, it's a lot smaller, but I can get back to the space station, deliver that, come back, and you're still loading. So I'm definitely excited. I'm extremely excited about seeing the value that some of these smaller ships have, because of some instances where fast trading is required, especially if you don't or may not have the human resource, or if you go to a particular location where the resource for auto transfer isn't necessarily favorable for that size of ship. Because Ninetales Lockdown, 2 hours, I go in, I go out. I can possibly make more than a C2 if the medical supplies remain at that smaller outpost than after the event, because of the amount that I may have transferred from point A to point B. Of course, C2 and much larger ship owners will also have their piece of the pie as well. But smaller ships, I'm extremely looking forward to smaller ships having some actual value when it comes to trade. I'm talking about the Avenger Titan, the Freelancer, the Cutlass, all those ships, especially in cases where you may not have any other option to manually move your stuff, be it a resource or be it an actual trade that you're buying and selling, especially when it comes to the cargo missions. So some of these things, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing the power and potential that these small ships have.
Yeah, some of these bigger ships may just be, they just exclude themselves by nature of their size from certain mission types and certain experiences, other than, to your point, unless you're fully crewed and you got a bunch of people who can jump off the turrets and onto the tractor beam, right? Griff, your thoughts?
Yeah, I do want to kind of make sure I'm clear about this list that we created. And this list really is focused around the dynamic of what would be commercial trade, right? Where you're being either hired to move a tremendous amount of materials, or you have accumulated a tremendous amount of materials that need to be moved in a commercial way. Now, when I say commercial, if you're hauling, I'm just picking a random number, 50,000 SCU of something, I doubt that's going to be personal. It could be, but more than likely you're going to be selling it to a buyer that has a requirement or a need for a tremendous amount of material. So this does not dismiss other ships, and I think we started the show out talking about the fact that you can use any ship to do trade in, right? It could be, if that trade could be a 1 SCU or a 8th SCU box, that could be still considered trade. But the ships that are listed here are primarily for people who will probably be looking at doing some form of gameplay that would fall under that category of trading, or would be interacting with these ships in some kind of way. I do know that Kavion had asked a question, as someone think they may have answered it, was asking about why the Starfarer series was in here. And the Starfarer series is also designed to be used for doing some form of trade. I think someone mentioned about the cargo pods that were supposedly going to be assigned for it, but this could be taking a mission somewhere where something as simple as water is necessary or fuel is necessary. And again, what are you trading for it? Is it UEC? Is it some other type of commodity? That's one of the reasons why you've got a 384 size cargo bay inside of there. It's not for you to put your vehicles in. It's because you're going to be doing some form of transactioning using that ship, and that space is available there for you to do it. So again, I think Kalrati's point is really important. I think people underestimate smaller ships and medium-sized ships. Everybody's so worried about getting to the granddaddy or grandmammy ships. But I think for daily usage, one of the reasons why the hull C is the common carrier, not the hull D or the E, is because that size of 4,084, whatever it is, 4,084 SCU or 96 SCU, is evidently a common thing to be ran. But there are plenty of other ships, whether it's the Zeus CL or the Crusader C1, that are going to be vital to movement as well. And I think those ships are going to be definitely what you're going to see a lot of people moving, to Kalrati's point, for discretion, right? Kalrati, if nothing else, taking a whole E out is a big flag. It's a huge flag. And you've got, and fastcart mentioned this. Yeah, fastcart mentioned earlier, having the logistics to move that type of material is going to be something that people will have to consider. So yeah, that's why we've got these ships here. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Fastcart, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad Griffin gave that clarification, because I was thinking like the smaller ships, I wanted to give a shout out to the Spirit C1 or the Zeus CL, but those are kind of excluded. I mean, the Zeus CL kind of fits because it's almost freelancers max size, but not quite. But I gotta give a shout out to the MSR for speed, even though it's not really a transport or cargo. It's well, I guess it's. The side, the cargo side isn't that big compared to the other ship, but for speed, you can't beat. One thing I will mention is the attack Raylan. That's another upcoming ship that people might want to keep their eye on, because even though it's like the whole series, when it has the cargo on the outside, it's not really protected by interior. But if you have a good logistic plan, you should be fine. But to Kalrati's point about smaller ships, the whole A and B, I foresee a lot of people taking advantage of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And
but you talk about a great value. I almost forgot. A great value. The BMM, when it was $250, that was a great value. Yes.
Yeah, you need to stay excited about getting in on the BMM at that level. That story is going to be legend over the long term. Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
I was going to just add another value piece real quick. Among starter ships, one of the ships that I think we forget about in terms of its value, particularly here when it comes to cargo and trade, is the Consolidated Outland Nomad. Right. Kalrati mentioned the Avenger Titan. That's 8 SCU. The Nomad is 24. Right. So the Nomad is 3 times what the Avenger will do, but it's still in that starter ship, upper end starter ship range.
Yeah.
And that's the pickup truck of the verse, baby. That gets it done. For those of you that are new to the game, it's a very simple and elegant layout inside as well. And it can really get you started on that career trading, that trading career path. So let's not forget that Nomad.
Cap, can I throw one in too? I'm sorry, I forgot to throw my recommended ship, and that's the one that people like a lot is the Freelancer Max. That one is one that a lot of people who are into hauling stuff. It's kind of like that great space. It's bigger than the Freelancer. It's just a nice ship, and it's not. The profile is really good for it too. In comparison to moving a Connie Taurus, you've got a smaller profile for landing in certain areas and stuff. So that would be the one that I would recommend as a Freelancer Max.
Let me throw out this other question with regard to ships and cargo to all of you, for whoever wants to take it. You see sometimes on Reddit and on Spectrum, you'll see images of people who load their ship beyond the cargo grid, right? So sometimes you'll see a reclaimer and the cargo grid will be full of boxes, and then you'll see double the amount of boxes all over the ship laid out however, wherever.
Yeah.
What do you think the gameplay should be around that? Should it be like, listen, players, if they can do it, fine, it's done. They can get it in there, it's fine. Or should there be a cost to cargo not being on the grid? Should that cost be dependent on the type of cargo it is? What are your thoughts on that? Does the cargo grid mean the cargo grid, or is it about player choice and fill it up however you want to fill it up?
Can I answer that question for you? Because on the page that we looked at on Star Citizen Tools, I have yet to confirm this yet, but they usually pull their information from RSI, and they've got reference numbers here, so I'm assuming RSI said this. It says it should be, this is off the grid cargo. It says, it should be noted, although cargo can be stored outside the cargo plates, it will not be secured and the shifting could cause damage to any containers that are there. Goods that will be secured and placed on the cargo grill will be considered declared on the ship's cargo manifest. What this means is that when players go through customs checkpoints in the future or are encountered by law enforcement out in the space lanes, their manifest will be broadcast like a trucker handing over a clipboard, declaring what's inside their hold and everything that's aboard it. This will allow a player to be able to make a conscious effort not to declare an item as well, but deliberately leaving it off the grid. As highlighted beforehand, a box left in a passageway risks unbalancing the ship, overweighing it, and rattling around in the back. But once the smuggling system comes online, players have a plus side in that it's not broadcast to others as a part of their manifest. A player who wants to slip a crate of contraband through customs will be able to do so simply by leaving it off the grid and avoiding transmitting its details to a passing police officer. Now, I'm mentioning that because I was sharing with a guy who I was giving a tour of the Freelancer. When you go upstairs, not the Freelancer, the Starfarer, when you go upstairs right before the cockpit, that's what that monitor is that looks out into the cargo area. That's supposed to be the ship's manifest. And even though we haven't seen that yet, that's how we track what's on our ship. We know what commodities, what we're carrying and where. So evidently, to your point, if you decide to leave something off the grid, maybe there's a deliberate reason why you do it, right? You don't want the popo to know what you're doing, right? Or the pirates, the pie know what you're doing. But it's interesting to see that there's gameplay for exactly what you're asked.
So before you guys go, let me just ask a question about that, Griff. So if I'm flying through Hurston, where you get stopped every 50 feet by the police, right?
Yeah.
And they say, you get that screen that says scan, stop, and then they say scanning you now.
Right.
That's the moment where I'm ostensibly handing over my virtual manifest. And if I've got a ship and I've got 16 pieces of cargo on the grid and I've got 2 that are off the grid, they can't see the 2.
That's what it's.
That would be off the grid.
That's what it's saying right now. Yes.
Okay.
I don't know about a scale. See, that's the interesting thing here because they mentioned about customs and a checkpoint, right? And in the future,
Right.
we don't know what the process is for bringing cargo in, right? We're just going by, like you said, what we have right now. You get a simple scan. Now they do scan for when you have someone unlawful on your ship and for contraband. If
Right.
you're carrying drugs, they'll catch you for that,
Right.
right? But like
Right.
you said, right now we don't have the smuggling bays aren't operational yet, right? So
Okay.
we're where we are right now. You know what I mean? But it looks like this is what they want us to be able to do in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, fastcart. Go ahead. Yeah.
Before Griffin read that, I was going to say that I would stuff my ship to the guilds per se, and try to fly safely, especially if I'm not landing on a planet. If I'm just doing it from my space station, it should be safer. If I'm going to a planet or I know I'm going to land or on a moon with high gravity, I'll probably be more careful and stick to the cargo grid.
So, Captain, Fastcart obviously has not tried to depart Hurston Station when you haven't even left the hangar and they scan you. He obviously has not run into that.
No, I have been stopped every 50 feet from Hurston. I forget what I was doing, but I know exactly what you're talking about. But I wasn't carrying cargo at the time.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I asked them why they were stopping me, and they said for the charge of piloting while alive. And I'm like, what is going on over here? Kalrati, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I wanted to reference Death Stranding, right? Because Death Stranding is an interesting cargo carrying game. It has other mechanics as well. But in Death Stranding, you have to be careful about how you distribute your cargo on the person. You can upgrade the amount of cargo on your back. I won't go too much into it in case anyone doesn't want to get spoilers. But essentially, if you're not careful and you're running around, like we've seen in the trailers and such, you can fall, especially when it comes to any potential hostility. I raise this because when we equate that to the cargo being on the actual on the rails versus the ones that aren't, you have to also think about the weight of the ship, because yes, it can be possibly designed to handle the weight of said cargo, be it on the moon, planet, or even elsewhere that will require that kind of weight to be amended or thought about. But in cases where something really, really goes wrong, then you stand the chance of your cargo getting damaged, etc., etc. And even so, in case something happens in the room where the cargo is, and you fill that to the brim, how are you accessing that area to put out a fire, to do all those things? Or especially if, for instance, if you have to vent the area by literally opening the rear of your freelancer without venting the area first, with the cargo that is not on the grid, sucked out, and you just let that door open, right? So all these things you have to also think about, and kind of weigh your options between maximizing profit or also thinking about the chances of something happening. So these are the things that I guess would also come into play the more well, of course, when they introduce weight or mass, more specifically, and also ventilation and the room system, etc.
Yeah. I think about trade reputation, right? To your point, I think a lot about the idea that I expect that there will be a dynamic there, and so when the ZCL comes out, the game that's 1.0 for me when the ZCL come out. But when ZCL come out, I want to be the type of trader that is known for having his stuff all on the grid, and it's never a problem like that. So if to your point, if there's a fire, my stuff's on the grid, it's going to get protection first. If there's a explosive decompression, my stuff's on the grid, it's going to get there, right? And I want to be known for that, right? So I will probably not stuff it to the gills, although I see right now in the current gameplay why people do that, because there's no cost to it.
Right.
But we just talked about systems that we know are eventually coming online that might elicit a real cost to not using those grids. So yeah, good stuff. So let's keep moving. So we've talked about mining and refining. We've talked about salvage and repair. We've talked about cargo. We've talked about the ships in which you do it. But you got to take this stuff somewhere, right? And in the Star Citizen universe, there is something called the customs. What's the name for it? The Customs Bureau, right? And I'll go ahead and read this because it's out of the Customs Bureau that the TDD, or the Trade and Development Division, has come. And now today in the game, in lore, the TDD is bigger than the Customs Bureau. But the Trade and Development Division, so every time you see TDD when you're in the landing zone, that's what that means, Trade and Development Division, is a Customs Bureau division that regulates the commodity market, trade, and cargo, and is one of the largest government employers outside the military across the verse. It is responsible for inspections of imports and exports into cities and landing zones for ships. All wares coming into or leaving a planet pass through a TDD inspection, and TDD buildings located across UEE space are marketplaces for the various commodities, and as such give a good sense of what is in demand. Today we see those offices on almost all ports and hubs across the empire. So there will be no TDD, for example, in Pyro, right? And for those of you that have been in the TDD, you see, and Griff referenced this earlier, you see a whole bunch of information that we hope and pray CDD, as part of the quanta and the economy and the background simulation, will make live information, right? That functions almost in real time for us to be able to see the opportunities to, as fastcart said earlier, buy low and sell high. What's y'all experience with the TDD? How do you use it? Where can it be better for a trader? And where is it working really well? Let's start with Kalrati.
Yeah, so the TDD, at least my experience with it has been, pretty much straightforward. But of course, one of the things that's going to be, eventually going away would be that instantaneous sell and buy, right? So right now, of course, one of the, I guess, prevailing issues in that I'm facing is just that it doesn't feel like it's worth going there when it comes to selling or buying certain goods compared to outposts or stations. I haven't been to the distribution centers or I haven't heard much information about what they're planning on selling or buying or allowing us to buy from there for 323, or maybe not, or beyond. But that's been my experience with the Trade and Develop division. It's been pretty much straightforward. However, I do hope that in the future, when it comes to us experiencing trading, and especially when it comes to trading between players, that the TDD can be a place for us to exchange those goods. For example, I go to a terminal and I submit whatever it is that I have possibly acquired from another point, from another location, and I'm willing to actually transfer that to a player. Of course, we can't say that the item kiosk can possibly be that place to do it as well, but I think that the TDD can be a potential location to facilitate those kinds of transactions when it comes to trade. So that's my hope, that those kinds of things can possibly occur from there, because I see a lot of potential when it comes to preserving and enhancing that kind of trade between players as well. And of course, between organizations too. You never know.
Yes, very good. Fastcart, your thoughts on the TDD?
I'm looking forward to using it more, using it when the VMM is out. I don't have much experience with using it at the moment, like I'm trying to save myself for when certain aspects of the game come online for me. So it's a quick answer. My apologies.
No problem whatsoever. Right? It's just the truth. That's going to have to be the answer, right? Griff, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm like Kalrati. I'm curious as to how information will be passed on when you're working with other people. For example, if I go to the TDD right now, there's, all the commodity prices and things are constantly changing and moving. I'm curious to know how that information will be transmitted to me as a player when I'm out in the world. Will it be a matter if Kalrati happens to go into the TDD and he says, "Hey, Griff, I know you got 80,000, SCU of gold laying around. It's hot right now over in Goss." Is it because he's actually there and he sees that information in real time? Is there a benefit to him being there and seeing it in real time versus, am I going to get that information via Mobiglass, but it's delayed in some form? I'm curious as to how you're going to make the TDD a place where there's some form of literally being there, because there's this great place that's developed with all these monitors and stuff. But, you know, are there going to be brokers? I mean, I know this is kind of sounding extreme, but I'm saying all that stuff's been created to be used in some form. And how will that information be transmitted? You know, if Kalrati's there and he gets the goods and gets the information, maybe it doesn't get transmitted out for another 15 minutes or 30 minutes if I happen to be across the system somewhere or in another system. So I want to see how that place becomes much more practical and not, as you mentioned, like the admin office, just a drop-off point. You know, I want to see it come to life in some way. They've got those conference rooms there, all types of stuff that's there. And I really want to see how that's going to become an active live place and meaningful for us in the game.
Yes. Instigator, thank you very much for the subscription and for being a subscriber for 28 months. That's a blessing. Super thankful. Yeah, for me, lots of things come to mind when I think about the TDD. I go all the way back to the video of the Constellation and folks coming out to the cargo on the Constellation, if you remember that. And then you left and went through customs. For me, that was a simulation of CIG's thinking at the time that, yes, you're going to have to go through customs as a person, but we're going to have people, when you land in that hangar, we're going to have people come out and put your manifest through customs, right? And they talk about the TDD being responsible for that. I'm very interested in what iteration of that we'll ultimately get, particularly as we've got that 3.23.x branch with hangars personalized and otherwise. Griff, you took a little bit of what I was going to talk about with regard to CIG talking about future apps being developed for the mobiGlas, and I'm wondering about a TDD app, right? That sort of is responsive to players saying, why do I always have to go down to the landing zone for the TDD action? Right? There might be some things that happen in the TDD landing zone proper and some things you can do on the app, right? It might be the case that, sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, not just in mobiGlas, Star Citizen or CIG folks will be developing a real life app for your real life phone. So maybe that they have some kind of API or what have you to get information on your phone someday.
They're gonna have fools, and well, by fools I mean me. They're gonna have fools running home because they at work. The app said that, you know, Laranite. They just run on Laranite right where they are. You know. But the other two things that are tied to the TDD and traders that are on this article were things like, in the lore, there was a history of outlaws tampering with the landing zone TDD and putting in false high prices to lure in targets, right? So I'm wondering if the information will be hackable, right? And if there'll be hackable gameplay to manipulate information. So to your point, Griff, if Kalrati tells you about something that's happening, is that because he's on the ground and you can trust that more? Or, you know, in systems that don't necessarily have they're not necessarily high security, but they're still part of the empire, was this hacked? Is this hackable? And then what will it mean ultimately to do interspecies trade? How would the TDD align us with whatever the Banu have or whatever the Xi'an have? Right? All of these are very interesting possibilities. So good stuff. TDD, Trade and Development Division. So we are right on track. Let's talk crew, logistics, and reputation. I mentioned reputation a little bit earlier, but Fastcart, I wanted to get your thoughts as you think about all of this stuff. How do you imagine, one, what kind of crew you're going to need, or are you going to need crew? What are they going to need to be doing? How do you think about logistics and supply? So the things and tools, supplies and supports that group will need to do what you want to do trade wise. And how do you want to see reputation work in this?
When I first backed the game, Chris Roberts mentioned AI blades and NPCs. I was thinking like, I could have my ship full of NPCs and doing stuff. And as time goes on, it's like, maybe they'll be granular. Maybe have something like the Mass Effect but they can do specific roles or something like Dragon Age Origins when you add different roles and actions that they can take. But now I'm like, you're gonna have to have reputation, and there may be some crappy NPCs that I may be able to afford at the time, as opposed to a top tier NPC where I might have to shell out more money and have to pay revenue each week to keep them on my ship. Or I could just try to find someone trustworthy in a human player and hope that they won't screw me over like some people might have done in EVE Online or whatever. I'm not bitter at all. But anyway, so yeah, when it comes to reputation, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about what CIG will come up with that, because it'll be interesting. Like, I have my hopes, and I don't know how much my hopes will come in line to what Chris Roberts' vision is, but that'll be something that I'm looking forward to finding out.
Yes. Griff, what's your take here? Crew, logistics, and reputation, because, you know, all of these could apply to all of these.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Crew, whether human or NPC, can come with their own reputation.
Right.
Right?
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to Kalrati's point earlier. You know, the smaller your footprint when it comes to what you want to do, you know, the person who's running a C1, the person who's running even a Connie Taurus or something like that, or a freelancer, their response to logistics and reputation is smaller, right? The idea of them traveling and going from location to location may not have the same logistical demands as someone who is flying a Banu Merchantman or a Hulls D or something like that. So one of the things I think you said earlier, Captain, is really important, is even though we have the RSI website, the RSI website's information is still always a work in progress. And the numbers that we see for ships, I told the story before. I had someone who was talking about how many people they wanted to crew their Idris with, and they said they want to have 8 people. And by the time we sat down and started naming all the positions that they thought that they wanted to have filled, it went from 8 people to 16 people, right? And so if you're taking a whole sea out, just something as simple as that, they may tell you it can be crewed by 2 to 4, but it really, I don't think, when I look at it now, it's like, I think it's going to be more than that. Sure, you could take 2 people out if you could, but to Kalrati's point, when the you know what hits the fan, 6 might be the number that means you survive and you deliver what it is you're going to deliver. 4 may mean you 50% chance that you'll get it there, and 2 may mean that there's an 80% chance that you're not going to make it. So that's a factor with logistics, and crewing obviously is going to be getting people that you feel comfortable with to play with, to do things. That's really important to me. I don't know if you guys have ever done group play with somebody who just, let's just say they just don't fit in, or they want to do their own thing, or they just, whatever the case may be. I think it's going to be important to surround yourself with people who are like-minded. If you don't have the advantages of AI that fastcart is talking about, which I think we'll see one day, but I know what we do have today are players. And so I think it behooves us all to find those people that you want to play with, whether it's 2 people or 3 people or 6 people that you can count on. And then reputation, huge factor. When it comes to AI, for sure, that'll be something that we'll be able to hopefully gauge. When it comes to players who are not a part of your circle, I'm curious to see how many of you all are willing to trust someone who says, hey, I'm good at doing something. Now, fastcart's shaking his head and saying no, right? But
it depends on the strength of that reputation system.
That's what I was about to say. If the reputation system reflects that this person can do certain things, I'm willing to take that chance on people, because I know there are going to be lone wolves out there who just want to make money. Now, mind you, now in EVE fastcart, one of the problems with EVE also, even though EVE had a bounty hunting system, it was broken. You had no repercussions. You had no way to respond if somebody did something to you, right? It was a loss. And I can understand why that's a bad taste in your mouth because of that. But if CIG builds a system that allows me to say, if someone does me wrong, I have a way to counter that and put real heat on them. And if the reputation is robust, then I'm willing to take that chance too. Because people used to always swear about, oh, don't call anybody for a beacon if you get hurt. I have to this day, and I put a curse on myself, but to this day, I have never had anybody when I've done a beacon come and pop me and shoot me and take my stuff. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the game. I'm just saying there are players out there who look for that type of gameplay, and they weren't med runners. These were just people who saw the beacon, came out there and helped, and got their money and left. So I'm hoping.
I've never had a problem with people coming and popping me. I've had a problem with people taking the beacon and then they took on more than they could chew.
Yes. So that anyway, to your point, I think you're right. All three of these things tie together. They're important.
Oh, real quick, Griffin. I'm more worried about that person who's playing the long game. They may have a good reputation, excellent reputation, but they're just waiting for the opportunity to hit it big, as per se. So they may be playing for a couple of months or 2 years and saying, this looks nice.
Folks, what you're hearing right now is a traumatized Eve player.
Exactly.
That's
exactly. That's exactly what you're hearing.
That's how they move at Eve. That's how they do it at Eve.
And you're right,
Fastcart. Your thoughts? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Fastcart. It's not that possibility couldn't happen. I think for the most trusted thing, I'm going to have people that I know that I trust. I mean, not to be funny.
Right.
We've spent 8 years building those relationships now. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
so
right,
that's one of the benefits of being in orgs, of being with people that you've known for a very long time. If they want to wait 12 years to sit around, God bless them if they steal it from me. You know what I'm saying? But it's not like these are people who are coming in 1 year, 2 years. Because you're right. People have done that. They sit around 2-3 years, and then all of a sudden you come back and your hangar's empty. I get it. But hopefully I've built relationships with people like I don't know if I trust Colossal, but people like that who I can do stuff with, I've known for many years, and it'll be okay.
Yeah. Kalrati, your thoughts on these three meaningful components to effective trade?
Yeah, so I want to talk about the crew and logistics in one go by putting ourselves in a scenario where possibly for engineering gameplay in experimental mode for 323, what we have to do is we are it's usually an A2 versus an A2, right? But I often think about the possibility of an A2 in experimental mode having a bunch of cargo, and you're given a maximum amount of players in terms of an option that you can fill in terms of a party and those things. And possibly the opposing faction or opposing team also has a cargo ship, but with combat ships as well. So you have to kind of figure out how you're going to make this C2 instead of an A2 survive, and if it actually experiences a soft death, how you're going to defend and protect your cargo from being stolen. Just as a point, going from point A to point B in experimental mode, to kind of get an idea of, okay, how much in a worst case scenario, how many persons in your crew do you need to take? And also in terms of logistics and planning, what kind of plans or strategies that you have to do in order to survive when going from point A to point B when going up against another team. So these things I often think about when it comes to larger ships, especially because, yes, at least right now, Stanton isn't the most dangerous of places, of course. It's not designed to be the most dangerous of places either. But in places where we will be taking the risk to go through a dangerous system, may not be the destination point, but it could be a star system that we're risking to go to get to our destination. What kind of strategies that we would have to take into account in terms of crew members, in terms of crew quantity, in terms of our logistical planning, in terms of weaponry, defense, and those things that we will have to do to protect our cargo when it comes to trading from point A to point B. Reputation, I definitely think that in terms of things like licenses, etc., it can be something that can be tied to a player. So let's say, for example, similar to how the guild system is on Spectrum, you hire a particular person or a particular set of people, and you go from point A to point B. Of course, they can start off with the basic rule. If you survive, if you make it within a particular period of time, if providing that you're doing a cargo mission, then cool. Everybody gets 1.5 points, etc., etc. And of course, they can always expand on those things. And those points contribute to that person's reputation. So in case they wanted to get hired by somebody else, then they're on a ledger or they're on some kind of poster that says, okay, based on their previous experiences in terms of success, they were able to actually accomplish these goals. So as a result, it can systematically possibly increase the likelihood that you're going to get somebody that you can rely on.
Yeah. I think those are great points. I can tell you from my perspective, I don't know if you've ever seen those spider charts for athletes that'll list different athletic characteristics, and they'll be rated a 5 in this or 8 in that. And you'll see the spider chart go out that way all around the disc.
Yeah.
I want to see reputation function that way in game, right? So I want to be able to see reputation across multiple dimensions at a glance, right? So let's say, for example, I see that you have a very high trade reputation, right? Or trade support reputation, or whatever the category is. But I also see you got a lot of illegal activity, right? Well, that might factor into whether I invite you to the crew versus somebody who has high trade reputation but doesn't have those other things, right? If I want to do legal trade, right? So, we raised this earlier as a sort of mention, but I think it needs to be emphasized. We need to make sure that we have a really robust, or ask CIG to help us, or hope that CIG gives us a really robust reputation system, right? One that really gives us insight as to, one, why we don't get certain missions from certain mission providers, right? And in the player-to-player relationship, particularly when it comes to trade, how I know who I'm dealing with, right? Because it's not just going to be, to Griff's point, who I have on my ship who's partnering with me to do trade, but it's going to be, how do I develop some trust, right? How do I not play the prisoner's dilemma every day and night with people who I don't know who I want to trade with, right? Who might have the thing that they say they have the thing that I need. And we got to figure out a way to develop that ability to trust one another without everybody going, well, I got to shoot first because, so it's going to be very interesting to see how that develops. Logistics, I think, is right now is relatively pie in the sky, right? Because we try to be about information on this show. We do a little bit of theory crafting, but we try to be mostly about information on this show. And I don't feel like I've got great line of sight to the trade logistics other than TDD that we're going to have in the game that we can use. Now, I'm very much like Griff in that we don't have to wait for CIG to provide everything, right? And that brings us to our next area, actually our final area before we get to Q&A, which is the tools that are in game for trade and the tools that are third party, right? And so whether it is, and we're going to talk about a couple of them, but there's a lot, right? So there's the Galactopedia, right? And I've given voice to the Galactopedia in my last video, right? The Galactopedia sound like futuristic Barry White when it talks, right? But the Galactopedia, right? And remember that we're going to get an app for that. So that's going to be on your Moby Glass, right? SC Trade Tools, Galactic Logistics or gallog.co, UEX by Traders for Traders, the Verse Guide, and Verse Time, right? These are all tools that are available to players in and outside of the verse. And we're going to talk about a couple of them. So Kalrati, we're going to go to trade tools. Tell me, have you used this tool? And this is sc-trade.tools. If fastcart wants to put that in the chat. Have you used this tool? If you have you found it? What do you use it for? How have you found it to be? Tell us a little bit about your experience with it.
Yeah, I've used it extensively. Recently I haven't done a lot of trading, but when I actually got into trading, because I do see myself as being, I do see trading as being the number one way for me to earn currency, because that's what I used to do a lot in Freelancer. But how I used it, especially when it came to this type of ships that I would use, is I would, just simply go, and I would typically just frequent between the outposts. So I'd always filter out the main landing zones and just go for up to 120 SCU, because at the time Freelancer Max was my go-to. Currently it's the Hull A because I really love the exterior grid of that ship. And yeah, I would just typically go between the major sectors, but also just kind of root out the main landing zones and just focus on anything that I can actually trade, be it distilled spirits, be it metals and those things. So for me, SC Trade Tools, coincidentally, that you're actually asking me about that, it has been my go-to when it comes to getting, external information outside of the game for my trading experience.
And fastcart, if you'll go ahead and put in Galactic Logistics into the chat as well. Thank you for that, Kalrati. Griff, what about you? When it comes to SC tools or Galactic Logistics, do you use these tools?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Galog has been kind of one of the ones that's a go-to for a lot of folks. I mean, I think Galog and just like Urkel is for ships. I'm not sure how they've been running recently, though. I used to use them very much, but now I've kind of got my own run that I do just because things are so static in the game. But these tools, every one of them, and you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of tools out there. These are just some of the ones that we just wanted to give you guys for examples. Basically, these tools are pretty straightforward. You basically say what ship you're flying, what it is that you're moving, and basically where you want to take it. It'll tell you what the prices are for the commodities, so you can find the best price for what it is you want to do trading with. Galog also has other information on it, though, in relation to mining, trade. There's a data bank there regarding, I think it's ship parts or harvestables. That's what I'm thinking about. It's got trade for harvestables. Commodities are on there. It does have ships and items and things like that. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of information. One of the things that we have to tell you about these sites, though, is please make sure you check and see how current they are, because sometimes these sites stop working or it takes them a while before they get them updated. So just be aware of that sometimes information may not be the most current, but these are just, again, samples for you guys to take a look at.
Yeah. Fastcart, how do you feel about these tools? Have they helped you? Do you look at them? Do they guide? I know that there are pieces of this stuff that you're like, I'm waiting for the game, right? But as you think about how this is coming up, do you think, I'm going to be just in game? Because I'm going to talk a minute about something that Odizia said. Or do you think, I'm going to be using the tools that are in game and out of game?
I will definitely be using a lot of tools out of game, and whatever tools may be useful for me in game. But the UEX trader, that sounds like something I'll probably use extensively. I have used Galactopedia, but not when it comes to trading. I use Urkel and CCU games extensively at this point at the gameplay that I do, but that's not really for trading. Well, it's not really for in-game trading, put it that way. But yes, so that's currently my level of use for these tools.
Yeah, that's why that's part of the reason I asked it the way I asked it, because I know that you are already using out external tools for the CCU game, right? And so it didn't surprise me that was your answer. Griff, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to something about Galactopedia, why that's on this list. Were you going to talk about that at all? Because I can talk about it.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead, and then I'll talk about what I was going to talk about.
Galactopedia is vital. This basically is dealing with the lore of the game. And the lore often can give you guys great information and great hints as to where things are and why they are, whether it's where an asteroid belt is, whether it's a system that has been where it's not inhabited anymore. Maybe there used to be a mining area there that's been abandoned. Don't dismiss lore. Really, really crucial to knowing, giving you some hints and some ideas of the best places to be, even if it comes to what trade lanes, what areas are safe. CIG's lore team has really been filling that information up. And so when you find the opportunity, if there's some place that you want to travel to, do the homework on it. Maybe you're not going to know all 100 or 50 or 20 systems, but for those systems that you are favoring, learn the lore about them, because that can help you. Same thing with Verse Time, Verse Guide. Those are practical guides that allow you to know something as simple as what time of day is it when I go. You guys know the difference between going someplace at night and daytime can make the difference of whether or not you might survive, right, Kalrati? So use
and players should know that the maps app in 3.23 allows you to see that at a glance a little better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if verse time is going to continue to be used in the same way, but if you want to quickly see where daylight is, it doesn't necessarily show you the projection of how the Terminator line is moving and from day into night. So verse time still has that value, but you can see that now going forward when we get to 3.23. Fastcart says, there's a post here from CC Creator about UEX. Did you want to read that, Fastcart?
Oh yeah, so yeah, she created. Thank you for letting us know. UEX is depreciated and is scheduled to be removed. So thank you for letting us know that, CC Creator.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, and it's just Griff has alluded to this earlier. It is the reality that these tools, because they're not part of the game, will come and go, and their efficacy will ebb and flow, right? So. Ain't nobody paying these third-party people to do this stuff, right? So they're going to get to it when they get to it, right? Odeezy raises a very interesting point, and it's the point I wanted to make around these tools. And I have always been, all the way back to my time with Elite Dangerous, I have been conflicted. I am very conflicted about these tools. I have a love-hate relationship with the idea of having to leave the diegetic in-game experience for anything. Right. Like, so on the one hand, what I want are all of these tools and all of their dynamism in some in-lore, in-game form in the verse, right? So that I don't have to leave and look at anything else, right? On the other hand, I recognize that 1,200 developers, right? Or 1,200 staff at CIG, many of them developers, right, isn't the same as the brain energy and capacity of millions of players around the world who might come up with an additional idea, right? Or a better idea, or an idea that doesn't fit in-game lore but functions really well. And so I would never want to turn down the light of the community in terms of developing these tools. But as I think about the extent to which I want to role play in the game as CaptainSeriousFun, an enthusiast of RSI who flies a certain ship and does stuff in the game, I'd love to be able to just look in game. I'm conflicted about Discord, right? Colossal is famous or infamous for using in-game chat, right? He uses in-game chat all the time, so you can hear him in the game talking to you, right? Not enough for me players do that. We don't live in the game and we don't talk in the game and we don't have in-game, because for right now, Discord is just better. But I'm conflicted about that. I wonder about your thoughts on that. Do you wrestle with that at all? Do you want it to be in-game? Do you not care? How do you feel about that? Fastcart, why don't you start?
I love Discord. I can't foresee in-game chat ever overtaking Discord. Unless it's like for a limited time, sure, I'll probably switch over. But as for a long-term thing, I probably will be sticking with Discord. But we'll see.
Yeah. So you see yourself, you don't have a problem, and you see yourself, it's third-party tools are fine, right? And I think that's a perfectly legitimate view. Yeah. Kalrati, what do you think?
So I think third-party tools are fine. Of course, I still advocate for the integrated tools, particularly if it gives me more real-time information, because it's directly tied to the server and backend. I'll definitely say if you guys have the resources to develop one in-game, please do, especially if it actually brings some good value to the player and the experience. The third-party tools, of course, how I see it is, all right, if there's a way in which we want to check out information, we're not in the game, but we can still have some kind of information, if we're outside, we're talking with friends in a bar or somewhere, and we just want to pull information because we want to draw reference from it. That's where the value of those external tools can also come in, apart from possibly also using it in the game. It may not be in real time, but I think they still have some value if they can pull and update the data continuously. So yeah.
Griff, your thoughts? Am I crazy for being conflicted?
No, pretty much the same thing. I see the tools as that they're there to help us now in the current state of the game. I mean, they're not just these tools, but there've been, like you said, a lot of people who've just been dedicated to providing all types of information, whether it's Star Citizen tools that worked as basically the Galactopedia for many years before the Galactopedia started to get expanded. There have been some people who've been really dedicated to providing these tools to help us kind of navigate through the game. But I agree with you. I want CIG to develop these things so that they're in our Mobi-Glass, they're in Spectrum, whether I'm looking through fastcart's monocle, and seeing data. I really want them to make it so that the immersion aspect is there. And I don't know what will happen when it happens, but we do know that CIG has said that one of the things that Turbulent is trying to do is to integrate communications, information, and everything being inside the game. How is that going to affect Discord? How is that going to affect tools like this? We'll have to see what it does in the future. But for now, I think we welcome the tools because they help us navigate the game a little bit easier.
Yeah. Okay. Great stuff. Outstanding stuff, both here from the panel and from the chat. We have a lot of questions. I invited people and reminded them to give us some Q&A. We have several questions. So as we go through them, I'm going to ask the panel for their rapid fire responses, right? Mm-hmm. So unless you have something that you think is Shakespearean-esque in its elucidation, try and give us like a one-word, one-sentence response to these questions, and Fastcart's going to read them. We'll go very quickly.
Yeah, I'm going to leave Pop first question last, but Dead Flag asked, how will industrial players keep up with PvPers given the new SCM speed and lack options for PvE players? How would industrial players keep up with their PvPers given the new SCM speed?
I'll give a short answer for those of you who've done it. I know there are a lot of people who have concerns about the new master modes, but believe it or not, the PvP players have just as much concern as the PvE players do. I think that master modes is something we have to get used to. I've been using it ever since we went into the patch, and I feel good about it. I don't feel vulnerable, and I am a industrialist person. I do not feel vulnerable. I think it makes me think about what I'm going to do and calculate what I'm going to do much better. I think it's just that we're used to playing it one way and we've had it for so long. But I would just say, give this a try. I think they just said this. Richard Tyre and him just said this on Friday. Give it a try and keep doing it. And if you do see things you have concerned about, contribute what you think could make it better. But I don't see it as giving us a deficit, because anytime I'm invulnerable, or anytime I'm vulnerable, the person attacking me is vulnerable too. I think it can be done, and I think both sides can win with master modes. But that's my feelings about it.
Kalrati, Fastcart, before I go. No.
In this grand stage of maritime strife, where ships doth dance with swiftness, the industrial minds must bend.
I said Shakespearean. That's why he did
it. All right, Kalrati, I'll give you that one.
But yeah, I think I definitely agree with Griff. I think that I did try it. I have tried trading, but I didn't experience any conflict. Right, even with NPCs and those things, even with being interdicted, I didn't experience it in 323 yet. However, I'm not as concerned as I don't think people need to be as concerned as they should be. At the same time, when looking at ships like the Mantis and those things and how capable it is when it comes to preventing us from spooling, especially when it comes to getting away, some planning will also have to be taken into account that we may not have needed to do before.
Exactly.
So yeah, because as someone who was able to use precision targeting mode to take out engines and those things, and in an Aurora, and I was targeting a mole. It was fun on my end. It may not have been fun for the mole. I mean, the mole was an NPC, mind you. So it will be interesting to see the spectrum posts, both the positives and the salt. But I think ultimately this is what the devs are going to use. And I think ultimately this is what people are also going to be using to make their own decisions, whether or not they experience some not so good experiences at first.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Fastcart, you and I will answer this question we had to answer much quicker than those two did.
Very carefully. That's my answer.
Yeah, my answer is with planning. That's how we would do it. All right, let's keep going.
The next question is, can we get channel point? This is from Yo-Yo Mag. Can we get channel point redemption to ban jokes for fastcart all stream? Maybe worth like 250,000 channel point.
Griff, your thoughts?
Yes.
They have to set that up themselves. Everybody's independent. Feel free.
You can do it on your channel, Yo-Yo. You can do it on your channel.
Next one.
Tetsu, I'm just going to throw his name because I'm going to butcher that otherwise. Will there be star systems without any stations at all?
Yes is my guess.
Yes, I think there are some. There are some barren
Yeah.
systems in the game. Yes, as far as stations goes. Yes.
All right, we're moving along.
This is from Citizen Joel. Do you think the railing is going to use a unique SU box shape? It seemed like that would add nothing and gum everything up.
The
I
answer
don't
is
think- I think
because
I'll
the
use Draco
Suyen.
ones.
Yeah, because the Suyen doesn't. I don't think the Raylan will either.
Yeah,
Right.
CIG made it clear that it does take the standard SCU. That was an obvious question
okay.
a lot of people were concerned about, but they clarified that it will take standard SCU.
Very good.
Next question is from German Wecker. Cargo size will be maybe one part of the question, but what are your thoughts about cargo grid plan, where, for instance, a Corsair has more than enough space for a 32 SCU box, but won't be able to carry it, let alone the Caterpillar?
I'm sorry. I'm
What are your
laughing.
thoughts?
I'm laughing at Citizen Joel in the chat saying, "Please provide your answers in iambic pentameter." So I didn't even hear the question. I apologize. You had to read that one again. So I'm sorry.
So cargo size may be one part of the question, but what are your thoughts about cargo grid plans? Like you're talking about fitting on the cargo grid, where, for instance, the Corsair had more than enough space for a 32 SCU box, but won't be able to carry it, let alone the Caterpillar.
Yeah, my quick answer is that's about ship choice, right?
Yeah.
Everything ain't for everybody.
Exactly.
And there is some Drake-based, verse-based, CIG-based reason why the Corsair can't do it. It's just
And the Corsair,
won't be able to.
and let's call with the Corsair for what it's supposed to be. It's not a freighter. It's not what it's designed to be, right? When you start carrying 32 SCU boxes, that's stuff you slap on a hull or maybe into a C2. But that ship's supposed to be basically an explorer, right? And so that's what it is, you know.
Yep.
Oh,
All right, next one from CC Creator. After launch, when we're all starting from scratch financially, what are you planning to be your individual trade path for progression, from your startup trade to your ultimate trade goal? I'll start with that first. For the first month, I'll probably totaled up in my hangar waiting for all the people to get the Yahoos and Yayas out of the way before I start doing my real trade. Or maybe I'll be out in my my T15P or Hull B or doing some small stuff, and because I'll be sitting on my Batman investment for at least a month when point is out.
Who else? Thoughts?
So I think ultimately the largest ship that I think I want to go up to is the Caterpillar, but I think in most cases I'll just be frequenting with one of the medium-sized kind of transporters like the Freelancer Max or even my Hull A or even the Hull B, because of how small and compact and fast they are compared to the larger ships. Even though I do love like using large ships, but the Caterpillar, at least that size, I think that's going to be the largest, or even a little bit smaller like the Taurus and those things.
Yeah, for me,
and Griff?
Use of frequency out something like anything from the Freelancer series up to a C2 at the most. When I'm talking about anything frequently, I could very easily see myself at a Raylan level or a Hull B level most of the time. And then when it's time for me to really do some major movement, that's going to be with a group of people using a Hull C or above at that point.
Yeah, for me right now, the plan is to fly this thing right here. The Zeus CL, the same size as the Spirit C1, but double the cargo right now at 128 SCU. We haven't gotten the ship yet. And I feel like a life in the Zeus with trade routes, mid security to high security. Go Mob, thank you very much for the subscription, brother.
Go Mob.
Thank
Very
you,
much
G.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the subscription.
For me, a life in mid-sec to high-sec places with the Zeus, doing my thing, being a standard standard operator will be how I will get started. My ultimate trade goal is to be part of a group that does big Hull E trading, right? But that I don't plan on owning a Hull E at all. So.
Yeah, I'll be quick on my clarification. My ultimate goal is to have my endeavors and my vending machine working in conjunction. The endeavors will be manufacturing, researching, and I'll be selling this stuff good on the BMM.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just y'all just got to keep remembering what Kalrati said earlier. These smaller ships are going to play a big role. You know,
right?
You find a Hadesian artifact, you don't need a Hull E.
Right.
You need a small ship to get in there and get that. So.
Speaking of the Hull E, this is from Dafto. How escort at Hull E? How you escort at Hull E? That monster had a 2 quantum fuel tank, really the point of an escort range is addressed.
Well, like, in real life, very often you might have something that is escorted by a fighter group that takes it to a certain point, and then another fighter group picks up the escort, right? And so I think when you're flying a Hull E, I imagine a level of when we talked about crew, logistics, and reputation. If we think we're going to fly a Hull E the way we jump in and fly Cutlass Black right now, I think that's just fiction, right? I don't think you're going to be able to do that. You're going to have to say, all right, well, I'm taking the Hull E from Magnus to Terra. That means that I'm going to need support from here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here. And you're going to have to coordinate that. I think that's my thoughts. Sorry, y'all go ahead.
Who are the one who asked for people to be quick fire? Who is that?
Me.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say to his point about fuel consumption in the Quantums, for those of you who've flown some of the larger ships like the Hull ships or even the Crusader Hercules series, the fuel consumption, those ships they have huge fuel tanks in them, and they can go they're designed to be long range. So I think what Daph's point is that if you wanted to jump 5 systems probably in a Hull, you could do it without stopping. But the fighters, as you mentioned, Cap, they can't do that. So you've got to be able to coordinate your escorts in such a way that you do take ships with you, some of which can travel with you, and maybe you won't stop 7 times, but maybe you'll stop twice. And then there will be other ships that will meet you at rendezvous points, and that's about it. This is where we talk about logistics. When you want to move a Hull E, you got to have a real good reason to move a Hull E, not because of vulnerability. I don't think vulnerability is an issue.
Griffin, you're clipping in and out. Sorry.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Going in and out.
Yeah, I don't think vulnerability is the issue as much as it is loss. The level of loss, both of the ship and whatever you're carrying on it, is pretty big. And so if you're going to carry it, you're not going to be carrying 96,000 in scrap. You're going to be carrying a lot of a variety of things that are meaningful. And you'll be willing to pay the money to get the escort that needs to go with you, whatever that ship may be. So planning is the issue. I think CaptainSeriousFun hit that earlier.
Okay. All right, next question. We have 2 more. This one is from Tempasta. With cargo charges coming to Star Citizen, along with persistent hangars, players will be able to buy and hoard things over time. They may need bigger and bigger ships to haul their cargo. So when is fastcart BMM giveaway? I'll take that one. Simpasta, never. You keep on asking, the answer will always be no. So that's my quick and dirty answer. Never. Thank you for that. And then for the last question, this is from Popped in Face. This was asked 2 hours ago at the beginning of the show. Who is the best looking person in Soul Citizen? I'm gonna ask CaptainSeriousFun. You should take that one first.
A few of us in this room are married.
Soul Citizen is in the eye of the beholder.
There you go. See, the married people in here know how to answer that question. See,
Right, is my wife.
Thank you, ODG. Thank you, ODG. And that's it for the question.
Very good. Well, that brings us to the end of our show. What I want to do is make sure that we go over a few things, but we like to always begin and end in gratitude. So we're super thankful to have you all here this evening. We're super thankful for the folks that have given bits, who have decided to follow, who have decided to subscribe, for Yo-Yo Meg, who decided to raid, the Soul Citizens channel this evening. We're very, very appreciative. You could be anywhere tonight, and the fact that you chose to be here is something that we're very thankful for. So we really appreciate that. I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about the Soul Citizens Twitch channel. On that channel, you'll see the About tab. At the About tab, you'll see the referral codes that you can give out to folks who might want to be joining the game in the run-up to Invictus Launch Week, right? Invictus Launch Week tends to have a free fly event. It's a great time to get folks involved in the game. And if you need a referral code, the referral code for Soul team members is found there. We'd love for you to share that out. We also have merchandise. And Fastcart, if you would put the link to the merch page in our...
but I'll look it up. Okay.
Okay. In our chat, the Soul Citizens gear is tight. I wear it out to formal events. That's how tight it is, right? So you need to consider. I got a couple different mugs. Right? I got a Jade Star Watcher mug. I got a mug from a dude named Big Black Gaming who used to be around. Look at Kalrati with the water bottle. We got all kinds of stuff. So just be sure to check all that out. And then let's talk a little bit about our next shows. Kalrati, if you'll talk about what happens for Soul Talk Thursdays.
Yeah, Soul Talk Thursdays, where I never remember the actual time that it starts. This Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talk about and react to Star Citizen, Inside Star Citizen, Star Citizen Live, all things that happen with Star Citizen, specifically from RSI, from CIG. And of course, you're always invited to join us on Discord and share your opinions, share your thoughts. We also react to some really, really cool machinima that's been made from some really, really talented content creators. So join us this Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Absolutely. And Fastcart, if you'll talk about Soul Voices.
Soul Voices starting at 2 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. UTC. That is a part of PodChat or Podcast Saturday. That's where you get to talk one-on-one with Griffin, what's going on with the Star Citizen community that weekend. Normally he covers something from Reddit, something from Spectrum, and something from industry in general, or he just goes off on his own and have a grand old time with us one-on-one. So that is Soul Voices, 2 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. UTC.
And did you mention PodSat Saturdays?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, very good. Very good.
I said it's part of PodSat, but that's followed by Captain Table at 4 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UTC, and then Relay Station or Relay SC at 9 p.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. UTC.
Very good, very good. And normally, you can join us right here for Soul Citizens at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Every Sunday, but next Sunday, Griff, what's happening?
Next Sunday is Mother's Day here in the United States, at least. And is that global? Is Mother's Day a global thing, or is it just a U.S. thing?
It's around the world, but it's not global, but it's around the world.
Is it around the world? Okay. Well, for those of you who celebrate Mother's Day, we'll be celebrating Mother's Day on next Sunday. So we will not be here. We're going to take off this Sunday so that people can enjoy their times with their family. But we will be back that following week, so look for us. We'll have some more great things coming up. We'll be approaching Invictus. So, yeah, that's it.
Outstanding. So that's the show. We're going to raid. Who are we going to raid?
Got it in the chat there for you.
Maiden Ariana. We're going to raid Maiden Ariana. We're going to celebrate and elevate her. When you get there, tell her congratulations on her Twitch partnership. Tell Maiden congratulations on that, and let her know that, let Maiden Ariana know that you are coming from Soul Citizens, right? And consider liking and subscribing with her as well. All right. So for everybody here at the Soul team, thank you for being here. And I want to make sure that Griff, I'm going to get out of your way so you can do our close.
Oh, you got it, Doc. It's on you. Sound them off.
Okay. All right. So we're sending them off. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll talk to you soon. Peace, love, and soul.